Unbelievable twist. A billionaire CEO's Misdial revealed a boy's heartfelt plea to save his mom. Jacob's hands shook as he punched in the numbers on his phone, his heart pounding like a drum. He never imagined who would answer. "Please, Alex Turner, hear me out," he thought as the line connected. He was just a 12-year-old boy, standing in the dim light of the living room, where shadows whispered the pain of loss and burdens too heavy for small shoulders. His mom, Sarah, worked tirelessly, juggling 3 jobs, her laughter fading into a memory buried beneath worry and exhaustion. The weight of responsibility hung in the air thick enough to choke him. "Hello?" An annoyed voice echoed, breaking him from his thoughts. Jacob swallowed hard, his words tumbling out as if they were the only thing keeping him together. "Mr. Turner, it's Jacob. I don't know how to fix this. My mom is," she's struggling. "She's tired. I can hear it in her voice. I just want to help." His desperation felt raw against the chill of the night. For Alex Turner, a billionaire prowling the heights of corporate towers, the boy's voice was a jarring interruption in his world of meetings and cutthroat decisions. But something shattered inside him hearing Jacob's plea. Beneath layers of ambition, buried emotion stirred, awakening a connection fueled by sincerity. This was no business deal. It was a cry for help. Jacob's heart raced. "I don't want her to worry anymore," he continued, feeling the tears prickle at the corners of his eyes. In their small home, the air tasted stale, the walls felt like they were closing in. He had kept it together for so long, carrying worries far too heavy for his age. "She gave me everything, now I need to give her a break," he choked out, the honesty in his voice hanging heavy, filling the silence where laughter used to dwell. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. In the days that followed, the neighborhood watched as Jacob's quiet strength ignited whispers, admiration flaring among neighbors, each one burdened by their own struggles but struck by the bravery in that boy. While bills piled up and Sarah's energy waned, Jacob stood tall, yet internally, he felt the world shift beneath him. Alex's promises of financial help began to circulate, drawing lines in the community darker than ever. His intervention felt more like a spotlight on their suffering. Then came the night of the town hall meeting. Jacob's fists clenched as Alex stood before the crowd, talking about charity and compassion. But it wasn't he helping. No one wanted to feel pitied. Jacob's voice erupted from the back, fierce and steady. "We don't want handouts. This isn't about money." All eyes turned to him, some in judgment, others in admiration. He felt the heat of their gaze piercing into him. "It's about respect," he shouted, challenging the divide. In that moment, Jacob became a small figure against a vast backdrop of raw honesty. Did anyone truly understand what dignity meant anymore? A murmur swept through the crowd, the heart of the town beginning to awaken. As silence enveloped the room, Jacob's burning gaze met Alex's, each aware that the bond formed through kindness was now tangled in confusion. It would take more than resources to heal what was broken, but could they find a way? And as the questioning silence lingered, Jacob stood ready, heart racing, knowing the fight was just beginning. Jacob's heart thrummed in his chest. Words had taken root in his throat, words that had the power to ignite change or drown in the weight of his fears. The crowd's murmurs stirred around him. Faces of neighbors filled with uncertainty, their lives intertwined in silent struggle, suddenly seemed so raw, so real. Alex stood firmly at the front, looking caught off guard. His tailored suit, though sharp, felt foreign in this setting, a world apart from the vulnerability Jacob had just laid bare. "You're right, Jacob," he finally said, raising a hand as if to calm the stirrings around them. "Respect is vital. I never intended to diminish that." But the moment hung suspended in the air, like the pause before a storm. Jacob felt something shift inside him. He was no longer just a boy who needed help. He was a voice, a potential leader. But where would this lead him? Not wanting to relent, he stepped forward, locking eyes with Alex. Then help us see our worth. Don't just throw money at us. Aid our dignity. Teach us how to stand on our own. A silence thickened around them. The crowd watched, pulses quickening, caught in the gravitational pull of Jacob's plea. He saw nods of agreement ripple through some faces. Together, we can gather the community, Jacob continued. We can create jobs, skills training, anything that lifts us toward our potential. You want to help? Let us mobilize this town. Don't just be a savior, inspire a movement. The murmurs grew stronger, shifting from skepticism into intrigue. A realization dawned on them. Jacob's words had sparked a flicker of hope. A woman in the back, her voice timid yet bold, called out, "We want to be seen, not just rescues." Encouraged, the room began to buzz with energy, faces lighting up at the possibility of collective action. Jacob took a deep breath, knowing he had struck a chord. The tension in the air thawed like ice in spring, letting hope seep in. Alex glanced at Jacob, his brow furrowed in thought. I see what you're asking for. A partnership, not a charity. Yes. Jacob shouted, urgency rushing through him. Let us make this town strong again. We can do this together. The enthusiasm in the room swelled, but doubt still flickered in Jacob's mind. Was he ready to take on such a massive challenge? What if he failed? Alex turned his eyes back to the audience. If we create real jobs, real growth, then we'll be building a legacy together. The mood shifted, the crowd leaning in, clinging to a prospect they never dared to dream about before. As the meeting progressed, Jacob felt both exhilaration and an overwhelming weight on his shoulders. Laughter erupted as people discussed ideas, but in the back of his mind, fear lingered. What if they all counted on him? What if he let them down? Then, just as momentum surged, a voice cut through the enthusiasm. The town's mayor, a specter of authority, raised his hand, silencing the buzz. But what happens if this doesn't work? If the money runs dry? The room felt smaller suddenly. Jacob searched for the right words, his heart racing. And as he opened his mouth to speak, the gravity of the moment pulled him together. He was just a boy, but maybe, just maybe, he was destined to be something more. Then we get back up, he began, his voice steady and loud enough to draw every eye. Because we want to stop fighting for what matters. Together. The room erupted again, applause echoing off the walls like thunder. But beneath that excitement, Jacob still understood one truth. The path ahead was uncertain, and he had only just begun to scratch the surface of this fight. As the meeting concluded, he stepped back into the night air, inhaling deeply. The stars twinkled overhead, a reminder of infinite possibilities. But inside, Jacob knew this was only the start of a greater challenge. If he was to lead, he would need allies and strategies. Everything hinged on the next steps he took. And as he walked home, whispers of doubt crept in. Could he inspire a real change? Tomorrow would bring answers, he vowed. Tomorrow, he'd need to make his first move, but what shape would that take? The next morning, Jacob's heart raced as he sat at the kitchen table, his mom's coffee brewing in the background. The steam curled up and vanished into the air, just like his worries ought to. He stared into the mug, tracing the rim with his finger, trying to focus on what lay ahead. Today wasn't just another day, it felt like the first step onto a tightrope stretched over a chasm of doubt and hope. Jacob, honey, are you okay? His mom's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. She shuffled into the room, her hair messy, wearing an old sweater that hung loosely on her frame. He could see the bags under her eyes, a traitorous sign of another sleepless night. Yeah, Mom. Just thinking. He forced a smile, hoping to lighten the mood, but the truth weighed heavy. How could he explain the burden of leading a community? Or the unsettling sensation that he might not be enough to lift them? Are you excited about the meeting? She asked, pouring herself a cup of coffee. Her eyes sparkled with a fragile sort of hope that made Jacob both proud and frightened. Sort of, I want to do it right, he confessed. In that moment, he realized he wasn't just doing this for himself, He stood for her, for all the moms like her struggling to keep their families afloat. Just remember, you have a heart of gold, Jacob, she encouraged, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. You've always cared so much. That's more important than anything. Her words sank into him, weaving a thread of courage through the fabric of his insecurities. He was about to reply when the sudden shrill of his phone interrupted the moment. He glanced at the screen, his heart skipping as he saw Alex's name flashing in bold letters. Hey, hang on a second, okay? Jacob said to his mom, rising quickly from the table. He stepped outside, the cool morning air hitting him like a splash of reality. Jacob? It's Alex, the voice crackled through the line. I've been thinking about our conversation. I want to help organize the community meeting today. But we need to move fast. There's a push for funding, and we should strike while the iron is hot. His heart surged at the thought of action, but a knot twisted in his stomach. Okay, what do you need me to do? His voice was steadier than he felt. I need you to gather a group. People who believe in this change, people who can share their stories and support our cause. We'll need passion today. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that, Jacob said, almost in disbelief at his own words. The enormity of the task ahead loomed large, but with Alex beside him, he felt a flicker of strength. Great. Meet me at the community center in 2 hours. And Jacob, we can do this. Together. The call ended, and for a moment he stood there, the weight of expectation settling on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. He returned inside, determination blooming within him. Mom, I'm heading out. I need to gather some people for the meeting. Can you hold down the fort? She nodded, concern etched on her features. Just be careful, okay? I will, he promised, grabbing his jacket and stepping outside again. The sky was an endless canvas of blue, free of clouds but heavy with the pressure to succeed. With each step, he felt his heart rate quicken. As he walked through the neighborhood, he took mental notes of faces, familiar and worn, each carrying their burdens. They were counting on him, and the reality of that responsibility both inspired and terrified him. His first stop was Miss Jenkins, an elderly widow who always brought cookies to their block parties. If he could get her on board, others would likely follow. As he knocked on her door, Jacob's stomach turned. What if she didn't believe in him? What if she didn't want to help? But the door swung open, and Miss Jenkins stood there, her silver hair glinting in the sunlight. Jacob! My goodness, dear, what brings you here so early? He mustered a smile, determination pushing through the doubt. Miss Jenkins, I'm here to talk about the meeting. About us. We need you. And as he stepped into her warmth, Jacob felt the energy shifting, the whisper of change at the edge of reality. Tell me more, she said. Could he really make them believe in this dream? Could he ignite hope in their hearts? Today was just the beginning, but Jacob knew deep down that he was about to embark on a journey that would test not only his determination, but the very spirit of his community. What would the reaction be? Would they take that first step with him? Inside Miss Jenkins' cozy living room, the wallpaper bore the faint scent of lavender, invoking warm memories of days past. Jacob settled into the worn armchair, its fabric a little scratchy but familiar, much like the comfort of the woman before him. They need us, Miss Jenkins, Jacob started, his voice trembling slightly but growing stronger with each word. With funding running low, families are struggling. I want to organize a community meeting to rally support. But I can't do this alone. Ms. Jenkins sat forward, her eyes narrowing in thought. You've always had a big heart, Jacob. That's what this community needs right now. Let us gather the stories, make them heard. Her enthusiasm ignited a spark in Jacob's chest, filling the void of uncertainty. He couldn't help but smile, the tension easing off his shoulders just a bit. Would you come? Share your story? It could inspire others. With a gentle nod, Ms. Jenkins replied, Absolutely. I have a few neighbors who could help too. They're passionate, like you. Let us not just talk about it, let us make a real difference. As she began listing potential allies, Jacob's heart swelled. It felt like they were building something solid together, brick by brick. Shortly after, He thanked Ms. Jenkins and exited her home with a sense of accomplishment, a weight lifting from his spirit. Outside, the sun hung high in the sky, illuminating everything with a golden hue. Next, he headed down the street to find Mr. Thompson, a retired firefighter whose gruff demeanor belied a heart of gold. Having grown up hearing tales of bravery, Jacob hoped to persuade him to share some of his experiences at the meeting. As Jacob approached, he spotted Mr. Thompson working in his yard, a pair of old protective gloves on, his hands digging into the earth. Jacob took a deep breath, steeling himself for another daunting conversation. "Mr. Thompson," Jacob called, waving as he approached. "Hey there, Jacob. What has got you all fired up today? Can we talk?" "It's about the community meeting." With skepticism etched on his face, Mr. Thompson wiped his brow, setting down his tools. "What do you want to do with that, kid?" Jacob shared his thoughts, his voice steadying with conviction. "We need to share our struggles, our hopes. Your experience can bring people together, give them strength." Mr. Thompson paused, considering. "You know, I've seen my share of tough times. But sharing narratives is kind of personal. But what if it could change lives?" Jacob countered, desperation creeping into his voice. "You've always taught me that heroes don't wear capes. You have your story, and it matters." For a moment, silence fell between them, the weight of Jacob's words sinking in. When Mr. Thompson finally spoke, his voice was softer. "All right, Jacob. I'll do it. But you better make sure you get the right people in the room." "Thank you. I promise, I will," Jacob replied, joy bubbling in his chest. As he walked away, gathering momentum with each conversation, Jacob felt hope blooming, a wildflower breaking through concrete. His last stop was to invite the Garcia family, known for their infectious positivity and resilience. By the time he made his way back home, the clock ticked ominously closer to the meeting time. Each person he spoke to filled him with more purpose, even as anxieties entwined with the threads of his determination. He could visualize the community center now, buzzing with life. Families sharing stories and plans, laughter mingling with nervous energy, a mosaic of hope and unity slowly forming in his mind. But as he turned the key in his front door, his mom opened it wide, her eyes bright with interest. "Well? How did it go?" Before he could answer, a car screeched to a halt outside. Jacob's heart dropped when he recognized the dark sedan and the stern look of a man stepping out. The face seemed almost too familiar. "Jacob!" The voice boomed as he stepped forward, panic coursing through Jacob's veins. "We need to talk. Now." The conversation he'd prepared for today seemed far away now, the ground shifting beneath his feet. What did this man want? And how would that impact everything he'd worked for? As dread curled in his stomach, Jacob faced the stranger, wondering if he was about to lose everything before it even began. Would he find a way to pull his community together, or was this the unexpected twist that could shatter their hopes? Jacob's heart raced, every beat echoing loud in his ears. The man standing before him, clad in a sharp suit that seemed to sharpen his already steely gaze, was none other than Mr. Collins, the CEO of the very corporation that had pulled funding from their community programs a month ago. The letters of termination still stung, hanging thick in the air of his memory. "Mr. Collins," Jacob managed to stammer, trying to keep his composure. What do you want?" "We need to talk," the CEO repeated, his tone firm but not unkind. Jacob felt an unsettling twist in his gut. "About what?" he asked, the question coming out sharper than he intended. "About your little community project." Mr. Collins took a step closer. "Word has it you're trying to rally support for these struggling families. I appreciate the effort, but you should know, things aren't as simple as they seem. Why did you pull the funding?" Jacob's voice was louder now, anger seeping through the cracks of his vulnerability. "These families depend on it." Mr. Collins raised an eyebrow, seemingly unfazed by Jacob's outburst. "You're passionate, I'll give you that. But passion doesn't pay the bills. I need to know your plan is solid before I can reconsider." As Jacob felt the weight of Mr. Collins's gaze, he fought to hold his ground. "It's not just a plan. It's people's lives we're talking about. Can't you see that? Look around, Mr. Collins gestured with an expansive sweep of his hand, looking almost unfazed by the desperation Jacob felt was obvious in their little neighborhood. I run a business, not a charity. Jacob swallowed hard. What he wanted to do was scream, to call out the hypocrisy of it all. Instead, he inhaled deeply, searching for the right words. If you cared at all, you'd see there's value in helping these families, in investing in their potential. We have to lift each other up, especially now. Mr. Collins paused, and for a fleeting moment, Jacob thought he saw a flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps empathy? But it vanished as quickly as it came. What you're asking for is unrealistic. Collins shook his head, scoffing lightly. You need funding to save your communities, but your plan is based on goodwill and stories? Stories don't pay for groceries. Frustration coursed through Jacob like fire, igniting every inch of his resolve. But it starts with stories. We have to remind people they matter. If we don't come together now, what chance do we have? Let me put it this way, Collins continued, his voice low and steady. You want me to reconsider, you'd better come back with something concrete, a proposal, perhaps, that actually proves to me this community is worth my money. Jacob felt a lump forming in his throat. This was a chance, a faint glimmer of hope like light cutting through a storm. I can do that, he whispered, thoughts racing. Just give me time. This meeting will show you. You won't regret it. Before he could finish, Mr. Collins stepped back, a hint of a smile creeping onto his face as if he found the whole situation amusing. Time is a luxury, Jacob. Don't waste too much of it. And with that, he turned sharply, retreating to his waiting car. Jacob stood there, wrestling with the whirlwind of emotions inside him, fear, anger, and a flicker of hope. The next community meeting wasn't just a gathering anymore, it had become a mission. The urgency tightened around him like a vice. They needed to prepare, and fast. As he closed the door behind him, Jacob looked at his mother, who had been quiet throughout the confrontation. He might be willing to help, he said, more to convince himself than her. But it's going to take everything we have. His mother's eyes reflected concern, but again, he caught a glimmer of support. He needed every ounce of their strength. Can you help? He asked. Of course, she replied, her hand on his shoulder grounding him. Then let us make it happen. As he turned to call Ms. Jenkins and the others, a new thought hit him. What if sharing their personal stories could do more than just rally support? What if it could transform even a heart like Collins'? With the clock ticking down to their meeting, Jacob took a deep breath, ready to make his case. Would their stories touch him, and could that change everything they hoped for? The thought was tantalizing, yet frightening. What if it wasn't enough? And just then, as he glanced out the window, he caught sight of someone across the street, the Garcias, an unwavering reminder of why he had to fight. But would their resilience be enough to sway a businessman with a cold heart? The real test was about to begin. Jacob's hands were clammy as he picked up the phone. There was no time for doubt. The meeting was just days away, and he needed to gather his community like never before. Each call rang through with hesitation, but he pushed through the nerves, his mother's encouraging words circling in his mind like a mantra. You can do this. Ms. Jenkins answered first, her voice bright and warm. Jacob, dear. What's going on? Ms. Jenkins, he said, trying to keep the urgency from invading his tone. We need to organize. Mr. Collins wants a proposal. A real one. We have to come together, share our stories. This is our chance. There was a pause on the line. I'll rally the others, she replied. Let us meet at the community center. I'll bring the cookies. Sounds perfect, he breathed, relief washing over him. As he ended the call, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The Garcias, the Johnsons, the Smiths, they all deserved a voice. They all needed hope. Jacob grabbed a stack of paper and a pen. He needed a plan. He began jotting down ideas, scribbles racing across the page. Real stories. Heartfelt moments. He wanted to show Collins the spirit of their community, the strength they had together. Later that afternoon, the community center buzzed with life. Families arrived, each person a thread in the tapestry of their shared experiences. The room filled with laughter and chatter, but Jacob could see the apprehension in everyone's eyes. They knew what was at stake. "Let us settle down," Jacob called, raising his hands to gather their attention. "I know we're all worried. This isn't just another meeting. It's our chance. If we want to convince Mr. Collins, we need to share our stories. To show him who we really are." Nina Garcia spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. "But what if he doesn't listen? What if we fail?" Jacob stepped forward, his heart racing. "If we don't try, we're already defeated. We'll never know unless we put everything on the line. Our stories matter. They could change everything." One by one, families nodded, some wiping away tears at the thought of their struggles being shared. Jacob could feel the room begin to shift. They were a team, and they could fight for each other. "Let us get into groups," he suggested. "We can start drafting our stories. What's your truth? What do you want him to see?" The energy transformed. Laughter broke out as they shared anecdotes, some tinged with pain, others filled with hope and resilience. It felt cathartic, like a release. As people began to tell their tales, Jacob's heart swelled. Stories of loss, of survival, of dreams deferred, yet still flickering with light. As the evening wore on, Jacob looked around to see genuine connections form. This was more than a fight for funding. It was about honoring the lives and struggles surrounding him. This was a community united in hope, ready to face the impossible. But just as he felt the momentum building, the door swung open. Ms. Jenkins rushed in, breathless and flustered. "You won't believe this!" Everyone turned their attention to her, curiosity painted across their faces. "What is it?" Jacob asked, stepping closer, feeling a bubbling mix of anxiety and anticipation. "There's a phone call from Mr. Collins," she stammered. "He wants to." Jacob's heart skipped a beat. "He wants to what?" All eyes were locked on Ms. Jenkins. The future of their community hung in the balance, and Jacob could barely breathe. What could be so urgent? "Well," she continued slowly, "he accidentally dialed us. He wants to talk, directly." The room erupted in whispered gasps. Jacob's mind raced. This could be their moment, their chance to change everything, but would it all fall apart in the span of a single conversation? What did Collins truly want to say? The thrill of uncertainty lingered, sending shivers down Jacob's spine. They couldn't miss this opportunity. Time was running out, and so was their window to make change. It was time to prepare for the unexpected. But could they truly achieve something greater than themselves? Jacob felt the energy in the room shift from a cautious optimism to a tense anticipation. He stood there, processing Ms. Jenkins' words. This wasn't just a simple call tucked away in a voicemail. It was a direct line to the man who held the future of the community in his hands. A million thoughts raced through his mind, tangled and tumultuous. "Okay, everyone," he finally said, raising his voice slightly to reclaim attention. "We need to think quick. What do we want Collins to know? What do we say if he's willing to listen? What if he already has his mind made up?" Nina asked again, a hint of dread in her voice that cut through the room. Jacob turned to her, seeing the flicker of fear in her eyes. "He might, but we can't control that. What we can control is how we present ourselves. This is our moment, not just to plead, but to show him who we are, to fight for this place we call home." A sense of determination filled the air as Nina nodded, her expression shifting from doubt to resolve. The others began to murmur together, voices rising in agreement. Everyone had their own stories, their own struggles woven into the fabric of their daily lives. This was them, raw and real. "Let us gather our best stories, then," Jacob suggested. "We need to make them personal, to touch him. We're not just asking for help, we are showing him what he can help lift." One by one, families began to share their testimonies while scribbling down key points on paper. Laughter, sadness, and encouragement bounced around the room. There was Mr. Johnson talking about his son who had a passion for learning despite hardships. The Garcias shared their experiences with the struggles of running a small business. Moments later, Ms. Jenkins returned with a strange look on her face. Yes, on the line, she said, excitement prickling in the atmosphere. He wants to talk now. Jacob's heart pounded like a drum, the weight of the moment deepening. He forced a deep breath. All right, everyone, he said, we need someone to take the lead. Who feels ready? Some faces looked down, anxiety creeping back. Then, out of nowhere, a small voice piped up from the back, I will. Jacob turned to see Charlie, a shy 12-year-old with a fierce spirit, stepping forward. I want to do it, he said, his previously timid demeanor now charged with a boldness that lit up his face. I can share about my mom, she's all I have left. Jacob's chest tightened. He had not anticipated the small boy embracing this moment. Taking a step back, he placed his faith in Charlie. Okay, Charlie. You tell him your story. You speak from your heart. The room fell silent, everyone rallying behind Charlie. He squeezed his fists at his side, swallowing nervously before nodding. Jacob picked up the phone and handed it to Charlie, his hands trembling slightly. The boy lifted the device to his ear, glancing back at the crowd with a determined look. Hello? Charlie's voice trembled but grew stronger as he continued. Mr. Collins, my name's Charlie. I want to tell you about my mom, she works really hard. Jacob held his breath, feeling the rush of vulnerability ripple through the room. Each person sat glued to the unfolding moment, hearts synchronized in a brotherhood of hope and anticipation. But as Charlie spoke, Jacob noticed a flicker of worry flash across his face, a moment of uncertainty. What if he still doesn't understand? Charlie's voice faltered slightly, but that glimmer of resolution sparked back through him. In that moment, Jacob realized this wasn't just another call, it was a bridge. And bridges were built on belief, shared vulnerability, and connection. The room tensed with hope, every single person canning their breathing as if the collective hold could somehow influence the outcome. Would Charlie's words reach Collins? Could they really sway the mind of a man who held the fate of so many, and what lay ahead on the other side of this call? Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was unfolding. But with every second ticking by, one question screamed in the silence that followed, would it be enough? Charlie's voice jumped out of the phone, steady and full of raw emotion. And she makes sure I can go to school, he continued, each word like a thread weaving his mother's strength into the fabric of his story. The moment hung in the air, fragile yet resonant, as he painted the picture of a woman who juggled 2 jobs, facing everyday challenges that many couldn't even begin to comprehend. Jacob could see the crowd around him transform, their worry easing into something hopeful. Faces softened, eyes glistening with unshed tears. They were swept into Charlie's world, his heart as vulnerable as the dial tone that had connected them to Collins. And some days it's hard, Charlie went on, his little voice catching on the weight of his words. But if Mr. Collins, if you could help us, our community could be better. We could all be better. The adults exchanged glances, some wiping their eyes, others nodding with quiet pride. Jacob swallowed hard. This wasn't just a boy speaking anymore. This was a call for hope, a wish for something better not just for himself but for everyone around him. Charlie, Jacob whispered, leaning nearer, you're doing great. But then, the fear crept back into Charlie's voice. But what if you don't listen? What if we just stay stuck? His question hung in the air like an unanswered prayer. The room exhaled collectively. The weight of uncertainty crashed down again. They all felt at the possibility that the call could break their hopes or, worse, that it might not reach Collins at all. Just then, the phone crackled, and a deep voice resonated from the other end. Charlie, is it? I'm listening. Jacob felt warmth flood the room, as if sunshine had pierced through the clouds. Charlie straightened, gripping the phone tighter. Yes, sir, he said, his confidence seeping back in. I need you to know about my mom. About us. We can do more together. Each word Charlie spoke seemed to spark something within the hearts of those listening. The truth of their struggles, their dreams, their resilience felt amplified. This wasn't merely about a plea. It was about the beating pulse of a community yearning to be seen, heard, and understood. As Charlie continued, Jacob saw Ms. Jenkins lean forward, her eyes flickering with hope, her pen poised above a notepad, ready to commit to action. He could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, tracking possibilities and instruments of change. "All we need," Charlie articulated, "is a chance. Just a little support. You can help us be something great, something." He paused, gathering his thoughts. Something better? Jake's heart raced as he felt the tide shifting, the fragile bridge they had built growing stronger. "Yes," Collins replied, "I can see you're passionate. But what exactly does that mean? How can I help your community?" Jacob barely breathed. This was the crucial moment, a door opening just a crack. Would they step through? Charlie looked around, searching for strength among the faces that had become his lifeline. "Mr. Collins," he said earnestly, "we want opportunities, education programs, job training, ways for families to grow. We just want to shine." The tension in Jacob's chest knotted tighter. He thought of the families, the dreams bursting to life in the air like fireworks. Would they find advocates? Would they be able to lift everyone out of the shadows? "Yes. That's what we want," Charlie exclaimed, excitement igniting the room. But just as quickly, uncertainty threaded through Jacob's thoughts again. Could they really count on the man on the other end of the line? Would he really understand the depth of their needs? Suddenly, Collins's next words sent a shiver down Jacob's spine. "You seem like a bright young man with good ideas. Let us arrange a time to meet in person. I want to hear more." Hope lifted their spirits like a spring breeze, but lingering doubt remained. Would this encounter bring the change they so desperately sought, or would it fall short, lost in the clutches of bureaucracy? As Charlie hung up the phone, he turned to the room, breathing heavily yet with a glimmer in his eyes. There was a flicker of possibility, and Jacob felt it too, a question rising like a wave. What came next would be crucial. Would their dreams shatter or soar? Could this really be the turning point? Jacob glanced at Charlie, his heart thrumming wildly. "Are we ready for whatever comes next?" The air crackled with unresolved tension. One thing hung over them all, thick and palpable. The future waited just beyond the horizon, veiled in uncertainty. And in that moment, one question loomed: what would it take to finally break through? Charlie stood there, the phone warmth fading from his hand, and the room erupted into a flurry of whispers. Jacob could see the spark of hope in Charlie's eyes, but he could also sense the questions that weighed heavily on the boy's heart. Some of the adults moved closer, eager to share the moment, but others still wore a mask of skepticism, their brows knitted together. "Can we really count on him?" someone murmured, words laced with doubt. "I don't know," Jacob replied softly, almost to himself. He watched Charlie take a deep breath, grounding himself, as if anchoring his hope to everyone around him. "How do we set up the meeting, Charlie? Do we just ask him when he is free?" Ms. Jenkins asked, stepping forward with her notepad now filled with bulleted notes and ideas. "Yeah, I think so," Charlie replied, his voice steadier now, bolstered by the warmth of the crowd. "But we have to be ready to tell him everything." "He needs to know everything?" Jacob interjected, a knot forming in his stomach. "Are we ready to lay it all out, every hardship, every struggle?" With the room's eyes upon him, Charlie nodded fiercely. "If we want him to care, we have to show him how much this means. It's about our lives. This could change everything. For all of us." His words ignited a flicker of determination. Jacob could feel it spread through the crowd, an energy that became contagious. They huddled closer, exchanging ideas, inspiration flowing in whispers, pens scratching against paper. Days seemed to blend into evenings as the group prepared. Flyers were made, stories compiled, and even a plan for the meeting was laid out, each detail infused with hope and urgency. Jacob felt himself morph into a kind of navigator, helping guide the others through the tumultuous waters of ambition and fear. But deep inside, a tiny flicker of doubt flared. What if they poured their hearts out and Collins didn't respond? What if this was just another false dawn? The night before the meeting, Jacob found himself unable to sleep. A restless energy buzzed through him as he stared at the ceiling, thoughts racing. He imagined Collins as he was stern, powerful, perhaps even indifferent. Would he even understand what was at stake? Just then, a soft knock on the door pulled him back from the precipice of his thoughts. It was Charlie, peeking in, his shadow cutting across the moonlit room. "Jake, can I come in?" "Of course," Jacob said, sitting up and switching on a small lamp. Charlie entered, his face tentative and yet resolute. "I was just thinking, what if I'm not enough? What if my story isn't strong enough?" His voice cracked just slightly, revealing the crack in the armor of bravery he had built around himself. "Oh, Charlie," Jacob replied, emotions welling. "You are more than enough. You represent everyone who needs change. This isn't just your story, it's ours. It matters." He felt a rush of sympathy tightening his chest. "Mr. Collins will see that." Charlie swallowed hard, his big eyes searching for reassurance. "I just want my mom to be okay. I want us all to be okay." Jacob nodded, a lump forming in his throat. He couldn't promise the world, but he could promise Charlie this: we will make him hear us. Together. The next morning, the sun broke through, illuminating the day of reckoning. As they gathered to make their way to the meeting, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The community had come together like a tapestry, each thread unique yet woven tightly in purpose. Arriving at the towering office building, Jacob's heart raced. He felt as though they were standing at the edge of a precipice. The aura of the place buzzed with power, intimidation weaving through every polished surface. "We're here for the meeting," Charlie declared, his small voice ringing with conviction, but Jacob could see the tremor beneath it. Moments ticked by, each one heavier than the last. They were led to an expansive conference room where sunlight poured through the glass walls. And there, waiting on the other side of the polished table, sat Mr. Collins, looking both imposing and curious. Jacob's heart pounded. This was it. All their hopes rested on this one moment, this one conversation. Charlie took a step forward, inhaling deeply, ready to share not just his heart, but the hearts of everyone he fought for. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, the door swung open again, and a voice echoed through the room. "Sorry I'm late. I had an unexpected call." "What's going on here?" Everyone turned, startled as the unexpected guest walked in. Jacob's mind raced. Who was this? And why did their presence just shift the entire atmosphere? All their carefully forged plans suddenly felt like they hung by a thread. Would this yet another twist fracture their chance at change, or could it lead to an even more astounding opportunity? The uncertainty loomed large, transforming their moment into a potential whirl of new possibilities. Charlie took a deep breath, ready to speak into the uncertain atmosphere. Jacob stood beside him, sensing the electric charge in the air. The newcomer stepped closer, revealing a familiar face. It was Alex Turner, the billionaire who had been so moved by Jacob's initial call. Hope flickered again. "Mr. Collins," Alex greeted with a firm handshake, his presence radiating authority and assurance. "I hope I'm not interrupting. Actually, I believe I'm right on time." With a single glance, the tensions in the room shifted, drawing a collective breath of relief. Moreover, Mr. Collins appeared taken aback. "You, Turner?" he replied, his expression morphing between surprise and annoyance. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I'm here because I believe in the people you're about to overlook," Alex said, his voice steady and commanding. "Charlie, Jacob, they're doing something important here, something that matters. Our future is tied to how we lift communities up." Jacob's heart soared. With Alex beside him, a corner of hope felt sturdy. Somehow, it felt less daunting knowing they had an ally in their fight. Charlie's voice rose, filled with determination. "Mr. Collins, we're here to show you that our community has so much potential. We want to create programs that help families like mine. We need support, not just blind charity." Jacob watched as everyone leaned in, absorbing the weight of Charlie's words. It was the truth, and it needed to be said. It was about dignity and respect and lifting one another up. Nobody noticed when Mr. Collins' demeanor began to soften. "And how do you propose we do that?" he asked, a flicker of curiosity catching in his gaze. In the next moments, they shared stories real, raw, and unfiltered. Jacob spoke of his mother's unwavering strength through hardship. Charlie found his courage recalling his mother working too late into the night to give him a shot at a better life. The room grew smaller around them as Jacob invited others to speak their joys, fears, and dreams pouring forth like a powerful river. As they spoke, it became apparent. The sentiments they shared created a bridge of understanding. Jacob noticed Mr. Collins shifting, a thoughtful frown on his forehead, processing the gravity of the moments unfolding before him. Finally, Alex interjected. "You have a chance to change lives today, Collins. Not with just a check, but by being the catalyst for real change. You can partner with these young leaders to lift the community. Empower them." Collins leaned back, rubbing his chin, his eyes clouded with contemplation. "And if I provide funding, what's the guarantee it will make an impact?" "We'll hold ourselves accountable," Jacob replied, stepping closer to the table. "We want to create a board, real oversight by us, the community members who will benefit directly. We need skin in the game. We won't waste this opportunity." The tension hung heavy in the air while Collins considered the proposal. Finally, a spark of intrigue lit his eyes. "Interesting. You're willing to put your experiences on the line? I've seen many attempts fail, and philanthropy often goes unappreciated." Jacob's heart raced. But what if you could break the cycle? Invest not in just the short term, but in the lasting strength of a community? We're already here, ready to work hard. Alex stepped slightly forward. "Do you doubt their commitment? Look at them, this community is ready for change. They just need the chance to show it." With a long pause, Collins weighed their words, his expressions shifting and evolving. It seemed like he was truly contemplating the power of choice, something he had taken for granted in boardrooms and negotiations. Then, finally, like a breath released after years of tension, "All right then. Let us draft a preliminary commitment. I want to hear not just about some ideas but solid plans and goals. I'll help you get that started, but this is a partnership. Show me what the community can do." Cheers erupted in muted tones around the room, but Jacob felt overwhelmed, flooded with relief and excitement. They had made it. They had taken the first monumental step together. As the meeting concluded, Jacob locked eyes with Alex and Charlie, and something profound shifted inside him. They were no longer just struggling to survive, they were becoming champions of their own destiny. Walking out of the towering building into the sunlit day, Jacob reveled in the anticipation of the journey ahead. "Together," he whispered, feeling ready to build the bridge that would carry them into a brighter future. "This is just the beginning," he knew. Hope and strength pulsed together in their hearts, a unified rhythm ready to echo through the community. Subscribe immediately to experience exclusive stories that uplift and inspire. Leave a like now to support this journey and feed the algorithm. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this fierce transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible change.